Hi, I'm Kawa, and this is QWA Podcast. In this show, we invite friends from the architectural fraternity for a casual conversation. From design think tank to integrated practice, we discuss the trials and tribulations of architectural pursuit. We hope this informal sharing will spark conversation among the listeners. Let's begin. Hello, everyone. Today, we are delighted to have the super talented Miss Pamela Tan of Pohsin Studio, a prolific architecture designer with significant body of work in art installation and public design installation. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
How
Just
about
completed
right?
sorry?
How about the cats? I mean, the fluffy gray cats.
Yeah, they are doing great. I bring them to the studio once in a while, and they only have like one job, which is to reduce the stress in the studio.
Right.
But yeah, just sometimes only.
I thought you have one, then I saw multiple of them. So how many cats do you actually have?
Actually, in total, there are 4 cats. Just that like the other 2 is actually like under my sister's care.
Right.
And the other 2, which is the father and the sibling, is under my care. So that's why it's like time to time you see 4, time to time you see 2. But for under my care is just 2 cats only.
Yeah. I'm so sorry for cutting you off just now. You are saying that you are just completed something, right?
Yeah, I just completed a small sculpture work for Kwai Chai Hong, the bunny work that you
the MidAutumn
Festival. Yeah. So that was just like handed over like yesterday or 2 days ago.
Great.
So yeah.
So to whom that are not familiar with your work, can you briefly tell us what Pohsin Studio is?
Yes. Okay, the word Pohsin is actually my middle name, and it's given by my grandfather. So I thought because a lot of people just called me by my first name, and they know my last name. So I thought maybe I should just use my middle name for the studio. But yeah, mainly my studio work explores in various fields in art, architecture, and design. So we aim to find speculative ideas, different medium, and come up with a different range of proposal from from smaller range like product design, wearable objects, to larger scales like spatial design. So yeah, that's what I'm interested in. Yeah.
Right. I think some of those smaller projects also include the design of chair and bench. And I think you partake in the KL chair competition and MRT bench competition. And they all obviously serve different purpose in different contexts. Both are equally great, but can you more or less share what are the inspiration behind both work?
Yeah, I think you're right. Both of them are similar in terms of function, but of course the approach is different. I think the KL chair, when it was introduced, which is back in 2018, it was an open call for Kuala Lumpur Architecture Festival. I think it was 2018, right?
Yep.
So yeah, so I think during that time it was the election frenzy season, and so it's I came up with this idea where I would like to design a chair that's called lineage chair. So I think around that time as well, during the frenzy election season, a lot of political surprises. I think also 2018 was known as the most, full of surprises in politics, So I guess that was my take on the chairs, where I like to design a seat that sort of remind that this whole seat, the support system, the seat supports the seater. So it's it represents authority or something that sit on it. And so the way it was translated in design is where all these members connected like a network. It's very interconnected. It's very it looks fragile. It looks very intricate. and then there was interlaced with like a sort of like a marble like effect, kind of like lyrical manner around the structure. So it's like you would have to think twice before you sit on it, kind of thing. If you look at the chair, and then like you would actually another thing you would thought about it is that like you will probably like wonder like will the chair support me, which is like this is sort of like the meaning behind or the question I want to throw off in the lineage chair.
Right.
So the bench, in the other hand, it's similar in a sense where it's again we're touching on our local culture, local scene topic, like because the brief for that competition was that like the underground station was inspired by the concept of Serambi, which is like the Malay traditional house for a place for socializing and stuff like that. So I began to look into Malay traditional house architecture, and then I find like some of the most interesting element inside is like looking at the wood carvings that acts as a sunscreen at the same time it's like a band block. So I thought what's interesting is when during the daytime and then the sun pierced through the wood carving pieces, which is normally like placed on top of near the ceiling area, and then after that it goes against the dark interior, so you see it highlights the silhouettes of the pattern, and then after that it forms like a really playful shadow on the floor. And I thought that was interesting, and I was thinking, how do I capture that sort of element into a bench? And then that led me to think about wayang kulit, which is like a shadow play, shadow poetry. And I thought like it reminded of that, and I started exploring that, and I started exploring like Malay motifs. I started exploring like, okay, rattan weaving at the same time. So I thought like, okay, maybe like the bench could be a sort of way where it's weave, seemingly like it looks like it's being weaved in a rattan manner, but it's actually out of steel. And then after that, like is interlaced with the motifs or patterns, like as if it is like a little modulus of like what you see, like the sunscreen you see.
Right.
So during like if there's any light or spotlight, because it's underground, so there's no daylight. But if there's like a spotlight shines on it, at least it casts a very nice shadow. On the ground.
Your work truly does range in scale and complexity. I think from wearables, products, furnitures, and of course, full-scale installation. But obviously, they have this particular dreamlike quality. Just like you mentioned just now, they are definite in shape or in form, but they are also looking very fragile. I mean, the chair, even though they are in an array of these meticulously designed elements, and they look strong when they are together, but they also look fragile at the same time. How do you achieve that quality?
I think for me, I just very much enjoy testing out the idea of producing physical experience out from sheer imagination. So my aim is to make it possible by exploring various media to execute that. And I always like to challenge the idea where it's like, yes, it is a bit like defying gravity kind of like work, but it is also understanding like its principle and then main support, say a main primary support of certain connection. So it's like simplifying that and just emphasizing that main support system that is connected, and how it works. So that's why I like highlighting that. And and the most important thing I think is the thinking and content behind the work that makes it enrich and maybe tantalizing to the viewer's thoughts and sensory. So that's why like some people perceive it as it's a very it looks like something you can imagine when you're dreaming, because I guess it has like many familiar elements that I translate it into the design, and normally it's always jumbled up in your head, but right now it's just like trying to execute it as a physical thing. Yeah, I think that's my take.
Yeah, but if you look at it carefully, is even though it is obviously highly complex design input, but they are very rational. I mean, they are not random per se. And then basically you drew a lot of inspiration, I think, from Ernst Haeckel. I think you mentioned his work few times in your lecture. And I think this his biological drawings really manifest, the principle of how things are modulated, control, how things grew from one to become larger in a spiral or in a sort of like a arrangement. So I think a lot of people eventually mistaken this as your style or, preconceived idea of how you approach things. But as you previously mentioned, the chair does have, the chair versus the bench has, narrative ways apart. There's a huge gap on how they've been thought of. Maybe you can share a bit, how does that process look like, approaching a project and eventually physicalizing the idea?
Yeah, I mean, like I would normally start with a simple question, which then led me to a simple subject or vice versa. Even that single subject or thing has like infinite information, such as like theory, literature, science, religion, values, etc. So I would normally like research as much as I can and then draw out information that strikes me the most. And then it's like a filtering process. Mm-hmm. After filtering them out, I will lay it out on a table or diagram format and re-evaluate or curate from that pile. It could be in the form of images, it could be a form of like objects or certain keywords or sentences or certain scene from a film, details. But I will give a day or two or a week to digest those information and in my head before deciding which subject direction I'm going for. And the informations are normally very complex, which could lead to many possible takeaways. So I would narrow it down to the one closer to my intention and that have some sort of relation to the site context. So yeah, it's like, then after that, the next phase is translating and testing those ideas through experimentation. That this process could take go back and forth. Like there's no like one way to look at it because experimentation is like a bit like a form of accidents. You cannot predict the outcome. And then after that, you go back and forth to your content, you go back to your experimentation again. Then and then I would normally require some form of narrative to weave the subject content. So it helps me to have better understanding with certain scenario or behavior, predicting possible outcomes. So this is quite generally like how I would do the same method, how I would do for all my work. But it comes to what a lot of people say, like you have a certain style. I guess how if everyone's given a task to do a drawing of a banana or something like that, and everyone draws that particular same banana in front of them, but you could see it's like even through their drawing, like you can tell, okay, this is Kawa's drawing because you can see that's the way he sketches. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's similar in that manner where when it comes to design, I guess even though the subjects is different, the research is different, the take is different, the approach is different, but maybe the way I execute it, certain patterns or certain curve and lines or approach or language I use is it's still there. That's why it's recognizable and become a language, my design language or something.
Right.
So yeah.
So basically it's a series of process of elimination, I would say. You try to filter the information through. And I think looking some of your work, you really, did a lot of work in public realm, meaning your work is on accessible to public, I would say. Installation in Mount Kiara 163, and then installation in Sawi Pyramid. I think it's fairly brave. I think for a phone brand, I'm not mistaken. Good Vibe Festival, and a lot of others among them. But I think one of the earliest one is this sports court mural in Sri Tioman 1, which is a social housing area. Maybe you, it is built, or it is conceived in a different setting than the other installation I just mentioned, because it's a communal project as to compared to commission work. So I'm sure the challenges a bit different, especially working with public, and also, your good intention might be initially, at least, misinterpreted by the residents there. What are the challenges do you face during that project per se?
Oh, that project. Yeah, it's like initially, actually, like when I was called in to do something for the social housing in Sri Tioman, they actually wanted me to do like maybe contribute like maybe a wall mural or something like that. But
right.
So for me, like I have to understand the site first. I have to see how people use it and everything. So, but the first thing that caught my eye is that abandoned-looking badminton court, and I thought like I can see like a lot of the residents use it. Like they use it to play badminton. They used to play like sepak takraw, whatever, and as some as like just rollerblading. And thought it's like maybe I should just insert some colors back inside. And looking at the architecture of the elements of the building itself, it's like it has this very retro 50s approach to it. Like even the mailbox is like laced with like pastel pink tile, and then the building is orange. So I thought like, why not just insert back the colors that goes in line with the building itself, So then I approached the head of residence and told him about this idea where to actually do a badminton court mural while maintaining the badminton court outlines. And he was like, go for it, So the whole idea is like, it's like, it looks like a swimming pool frame within a badminton court mural. And I think one of the challenges of communal kind of like project is that it's, how to say, my idea is just like a catalyst, but whatever that takes place is really up to the volunteers and the community itself, because they are the one that they are the one that makes the decision, and they are the one painting it, and I can't control how it's painted or the outcome of it, and the reaction of it. So it's like you have to really develop this trust that that you have to hand it over to them, because you are just merely like an artist or who just started off with this design idea, and then how it's executed, how it's like, it's really up to them. So that I thought that was a very interesting experience with communities. Even the one I did for Dome of Disappearance as well. It's like I handed over to a yoga / urban sketcher instructor, and also like another which is Wenyi, and then another one is Nuri and Farah, who did like the plant and weaving sort of workshop. So it's like two different community, and it's like a trust where like, okay, I hand it over to you, do your thing, do your take, and see how it goes. And then it's interesting to see how like what are the community that they engage with while doing this activity together. So like that is for me like what I find it like a bit challenging, but yet it's interesting working with communities.
So it sounds very democratic in terms of, what are the additional programs that can be applied on top of your work. I would say there's a trend as well of that going around town of public space improvement. Some are driven by businesses, of course, some privately owned, but there is also a few initiatives driven by local government or local community. But even though their intention might be well, but eventually equation of urban space democracy and equality is not as simple as that. It's not as simple as you improve a space, then suddenly they have access to a better, design public space, because there is such thing as the gentrification, and sometimes this beautification also comes with an ugly face or ugly consequences of gentrification. What do you have to say about that? I mean, I'm not saying your project specifically. I mean, this is like a general situation.
I do share the same observation as you. I always wonder, like, who are the people who made this decision and why, and why is the outcome like that? But then again, I think about it like, yes, they meant well. So I feel like it's a learning curve, it's a learning journey, and you got to start somewhere. So A for effort. But I feel like, yes, they do need to still work on that, still have to be more open and diverse. And they have to actually really do a lot of research, or or get like urban design expert researcher to really properly tap on all this, like the transportation, parks, and all this, where it's in sync together. So I know it's easier said than done, but I think, like, for me, one of the best example in Southeast Asia in terms of like urban design approach is Bandung by Bapak Ridwan. He came to Malaysia to give a talk around like 2 or 3 years ago, I don't remember. And yeah, it's like, I thought what he did was an excellent job. Like, I think maybe because he used to be an architect, and then he got, nominated to be a mayor. So I guess maybe with that background, he's very sensitive with the urban design and in architecture. So he knows how to control in that form. But I think another thing that really, really helps with that improve Bandung is that he's very in tune with the people itself. He goes through, he used every medium, like social media, newspaper, whatever, to reach out and to really just like ask the people themselves and say like what is the change, or let's discuss about this area, let's improve this place, even like from like a small thing, from a bus stop to like river to like amphitheater area. Like, he will put it out there, and he will just ask, like, it has to come from the people itself. And he, in his architecture expertise, he can only share like okay, because at the end of the day, architecture starts from the people itself. It's not like a solo thing, So, and he knows the way for it. So I feel like that is one of the best example for urban development, urban design research, and transforming to like how Bandung was to now is just very different. So I thought, like, maybe we can learn from that.
Observing from your social media posting, right? There's a lot of work that actually been not work like most of the item or elements has been constructed partially by the fabricators and partially with from your own team. So I don't know, I'm not so sure about this, but is there any way we can improve our ecosystem of vendors that can support creatives? Obviously, the amount of expertise here is not as as good as the first world country, obviously. But what you in what technology do you think that we have the most percentile to improve? I mean, so that our digitally designed artwork can be translated into physical more closely, because I think a lot of even fabricators are fairly manual. They work on papers and then they try to fabricate what you have designed. So what do you think is lacking here? What kind of vendors do you like to see set up shop here, or more or less?
Right. I think actually we kind of have all the tools. We do have robot arms. Actually, we do have CNC and all that tools. It's just that they don't know how to use it the way that we want to use it. So normally it's like I would observe, I would visit the fabricators, and I would see like what tools they have, and then I'll like, okay, and then I would just tell them like, did you know that with this machine you can produce this sort of design? And they were like, oh really, like let's test it out. So it goes both ways. Like you have to bring in that design, because they are just simply a technical people. Like they just like, oh yeah, you can just go XYZ, or you could just go like this, but they don't know what else like the potential, the infinite potential like this simple tool could do. So it's like, so I feel like it's because it's lacking of that kind of demand, then they don't know what to do. So like normally I would like approach them, I ask them, let's test this design out, let's do a several prototype, and then that's where they realize like, oh, actually they would share information with me like, oh, if you want to use, like, might not we use this other machine and this type of material, why don't you do this, why you do that, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's how it started to like, grow and blossom kind of thing. So yeah, there's lacking of that because like, because it has to start from somewhere, start from someone to test it out and then introduce it. And then if there is a higher demand where like, wow, like a lot of this project has to use like a lot of CNC work for the facade. That's why you see a lot of like the overseas architects, like, the overseas practices, they use a lot of CNC, and then they just like, okay, just trying to find every possible way to like CNC in like a larger scale or a smaller scale machine, and and just test it out there, and just put it out there. So like that's what the majority of the practices uses. So and then another thing is like understanding like the codings and these programs, like this 3D program and codings and stuff like that, right? And like there are so many experts out there who knows all these things, and in a lot of like, say like really good architecture practice, they have like a team who just solely tap on that, and obviously at the end of the day, the design team will inform this person like, we are thinking about like using this kind of skin with this kind of like texture, like what do you think? And then they hand it over to them, and they understood the texture and everything, and then they will do like several experimentation on that coding, sort of like, they will come up with various proposals. So it's always like a both way kind of thing. But right now in Malaysia, we don't have that kind of team, we have to do everything, and we have to like kind of like teach the fabricators like and work with them, so it has to start somewhere. That's the way I see it.
I guess they used to use that technology for other serious application or other more for the lack of a better term, functional application, and not necessarily creative work. And then now they realize the potential, the machine that they have. But that's not only limited to these fabricators, but also young designers, where they have this catch-22, which they try to carve their own space. At the same time, they haven't managed to manifest or express themselves by building anything, and they're having a hard time for convincing people how to to engage them. Since you one of the breakout creative individuals recently, do you have any advice how they can sort of carve their own path to actually be a creative or surviving as a creative?
Yeah, I totally understand where they're coming from, like, because again, the art, architecture, design scene is just not as celebrated as like compared to overseas or whatever. So I do see the challenge, and it's also not very accessible, but it's a good thing in a way where it's a good opportunity to do that you are one of the few to start something on your niche sort of approach. So I think my advice based on my experience would be like, just try to produce whatever you can. So because what I did is that I started off with like a smaller scale work, and I used whatever savings budget I can allocate for this and put it out there. And I think it's very important to just put it out there, display it, or somehow share it in some sort of like different medium or different platform. So you never know like who might find it interested in your work. And even though no matter how niche it is, like there is always someone out there who finds your work interesting. And for me, like so far my experience it always surprised me, because like I didn't expect for like say a brand apparel to approach me, like Nike and stuff. I would never expect like a mall would approach me, So it's like it's beyond your imagination, but you have to just be consistent and just put it out there and see how the public or the people react to it. So yeah, I think that's my advice. And also you have to really work hard on finding opportunities, being connected with the scene, trying to find like understanding different society and see like where your work could be accessible in that sense, like, and create opportunity to collaborate and stuff like that. Yeah.
Great. I think I think that is obviously, some of the things that young people can do. Obviously, not everything has to be physicalized. Social media has helped a lot of creatives to put their work out there. And maybe since you have been talking about the MidAutumn Festival just now, I guess that is one of the new work that people can enjoy. Where do they go, and when the thing gonna be accessible to public?
Yeah, okay. So the MidAutumn Festival is a very small thing that was organized by the team behind Kwai Chai Hong. Mm-hmm. So the venue is at Kwai Chai Hong, which is near Pasar Seni. It just launched today, officially today, and it will end until like MidAutumn Festival, which is on 4th of October. So basically, there are like 8 rabbits, and it was done by 8 different artists. Right. So like the organizer said that like, they gave each of the artists 1 rabbit. It's like a ready-made sculpture rabbit, like a lantern kind of like wireframe rabbit, and with lights inside. And they said like, okay, like do your own translation based on the narrative of the MidAutumn Festival. So basically like the rabbit has like many stories. There's different stories, but like one of it is something to do with companionship to this person. It acts as like a guardian. And another story that how this rabbit is like very self-sacrificial kind of thing. So it's like, so based on this story, so like the artist's task is to like translate that into their own take and just do your own thing with the rabbit. I thought it's a very fun task. Yeah. And now all these rabbits are like placed at the back lane at Kwai Chai Hong. So like it's open to public. Anyone could go there and visit it. Yeah. Okay, great. Looking forward to that. I think thank you so much. And you can follow Pohsin Studio, spell POHSIN_studio, or Pamela Tan on Instagram. And please subscribe to QWA YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining us. Until the next one. Bye. Thank you. Bye. If you enjoyed the session, be sure to subscribe to QWA YouTube channel so you will be notified if a new episode is posted. Thank you for listening. Until next time.